It's no secret that Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the most phenomenal games ever made for the Sega Genesis, selling more than 6 million copies worldwide. So how can Sega top that? Well, during the production of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, another Sonic game was also produced around the same time, but in Japan. However, not for the Sega Genesis, but rather for its add-on. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Sega Genesis CD. Now, before we go into the review of Sonic CD, inspired by Joe and Dave of GameSack, I will also go inside the specifications of the Sega CD itself.
The Sega CD was made in October of 1992 and was the second CD system to be released here in the US right after the TurboGrafx 16 CD. It has a slot on the side in which the Genesis can attach by way of the expansion slot. For some odd choice, it has its own AC adapter, and both the add-on and the Genesis must have both adapters plugged in to function. There are two different models of the Sega CD, as well as 3 Genesis CD all-in-ones, with the CDX made by Sega themselves. What I have is the Model 2, which not only is it affordable, at least when I got it on sale this past year, but it's also considered to be more reliable than the Model 1. Like the Sega Genesis, the motherboard consists of its own 68,000 processor that runs on 12.5 MHz, more so than the Genesis itself, as well as an ASIC chip for very complex scaling. In this case, the SNES has Mode 7, so Sega believes they can try to top that. It also has 512 kbit to PCM waveform memory chip to make the CD audio sound pure.
Now, despite the add-on having a much faster processor, Sega's intention of making the Sega CD was that they wanted to expand the size and content of its games. And given the specifications that came along with the Sega CD, they would also try to incorporate full motion video into their games as well. While the idea does seem rather sound, its execution is not done so well. In fact, their method of making full motion video is anything but fluid.
The quality of the full motion videos is basically between 144 and 240p resolution, and they mostly run in 15 to 30 frames per second, making the videos rather ugly. Not to mention, most of the games that use full motion video really suck, especially those with very poor acting skills. And just about every actor in certain games that talk to you, the player, really love to sound like jerks to you.
Pretend it's a game. Maybe it'll even be fun. Shoot the tubes, dog meat!
The games are sold in oversized covers in order to stand themselves out. Though personally, I much rather go to some sites that print out the same CD covers and place them in DVD cases like this. Aside from Sega CD games, you can also play regular audio CDs if you want to.
The idea of having an add-on for the Sega Genesis does sound good on paper, but it's executed rather poorly. Yet it sold over 2 million units worldwide. So if you happen to come across one, like say in a used store or whatever, I can recommend a few games that you might want to have in your library. Just be ready to break bank for them. Like say for example, Snatcher, which is a really good game by the way. I don't know when I'm going to review it, but I will review it eventually. There's also other games like Android Assault, Revenge of Bariarm, Popful Mail, Final Fight CD, KO Flying Squadron, and 2 JRPGs, Shining Force CD, and the Lunar series. Though you can actually find the Lunar series on the PS1. However, if you're going to play those JRPGs, you better break bank also for the RAM backup card, because the internal RAM inside the Sega CD is not as large as you think it would be. And finally, the game that I'm about to review, Sonic CD. Many regard Sonic CD to be the greatest Sonic game ever made, even more so than Sonic 2 itself. But is it really the greatest? Well, I'll be the judge of that one. However, I will also look at the Japanese and European version within the Sonic Gems collection on the PS2, but I will also look at the Sega CD as well. So yeah, let's get rolling, folks.
Sonic CD introduces 2 new characters in the series. The first being Amy Rose, a pink hedgehog with the hots for Sonic for just being cool, even though Sonic hardly ever returns her feelings. She's the damsel in distress in this game, after held captive by another new character, Metal Sonic, a new invention of Dr. Eggman with the speed capabilities of Sonic, and would be the robot obsessed with outrunning Sonic. He'll be a reoccurring villain as the series progresses. The setting is likely an interquel between 1 and 2. During one of his South Island free runs, Sonic arrives in Neverlake and comes across the fabled Little Planet, which is said to appear on the last month of every year. There, he finds the planet tethered to a mountain by a chain and completely mechanized. Sure enough, Dr. Eggman has set up shop in order to make the planet his new base, and it's up to Sonic to stop Eggman, all while also keeping Amy safe, and retrieve 7 jewels called Time Stones to restore the planet. Given that we're playing a CD-based game, you can tell how the graphics is more colorful than the first 2 Sonic games on the Genesis, though in most stages, some use of color is too much on the eyes, as well as stage designs that, while trying to keep up with blast processing, sometimes too much of that, in conjunction with fast scrolling as you speed your way through stages, can at times make you feel nauseated. Also, there's too much cluttering of objects that are very out of place and not properly arranged like the past 2 games were. Sonic also made use of full motion video. Obviously, any version that isn't the Sega CD is the better option. Now, the reason why I chose to play the Japanese-European version is because, while all versions play the same, only the Japanese and European versions have the better soundtrack. Honestly, the only track in the US version I ever liked is the intro song, Sonic Boo, while the rest of the tracks are forgettable. The Japanese-European version sounded better, especially listening to the intro song, You Can Do Anything, or the different hip-hop and dance variations of Stardust Speedway. Let's not forget, who doesn't like that Eggman boss fight with lyrics like, "Work that sucker to death." Come on now. Gameplay-wise, it's your typical Sonic game with some additions. Whenever you pick up speed, the camera shifts to the left, giving you a chance to see what's up ahead before any mishap or collisions can happen. Sonic can still perform the spin dash, but it's performed poorly. Rather than mashing the button like in the last game, the amount of speed depends on how long you hold the button as you start revving up. You won't dash until the charge is complete, and even then the speed is not fast enough. Sonic does have another ability, the Super Peel Out. It's done by holding up and tapping any button. Sonic moves faster that way, but is vulnerable to enemy contact unless you roll into a ball the split second you do so. Only in this game, as well as the Game Gear games, Sonic Triple Trouble and Sonic Blast, would Sonic have this ability. I mostly use this move when it feels like that I'm trapped, or gain speed for this game's gimmick, time traveling. Scattered throughout each stage are signposts that read past and future. Whenever you run past one of them, Sonic will leave trails of sparks as he runs, and once you gain enough speed, Sonic will travel back through time according to whatever post he touched. The level design reflects what time you travel to. Like in the past, it'll look primitive and has a color palette similar to that of a jungle or bayou. The future is mostly dark and mechanized unless you change the past. There are 2 different ways to get the good ending. First, there's the long way. You first travel back to the past in the first 2 acts of all zones and destroy robot generators to ensure a better future. You'll always end up in the future in Act 3, and the appearance of Act 3 depends whether or not you destroy the generators in the first 2 acts. Second, the shorter yet hard way. Like in Sonic 1, you need to have at least 50 rings or more on your person en route to the goal where you can jump on the giant ring and play the special stage. In it, you're controlling Sonic in a 3D background, destroying a number of UFOs, while also avoiding time-draining water. I will say that the controls in these stages are very tight, and you'll mostly miss your target. Thankfully, every time the 20-second mark hits, a blue UFO will spawn for you to break to gain extra time. I've mentioned that the Sega CD has an ASIC chip for complex scaling, and this is it. It's not as smooth as Mode 7, but it gets the job done. Once the UFOs are destroyed, you're rewarded with a time stone. Collect all 7 of them, and not only will every future will always remain good, but you automatically get the good ending. Just keep in mind that because these are time stones, don't expect Sonic to go super in this game. The matches against Dr. Eggman have different gimmicks than just outright hitting him, and they are very creative. It could be swallowing bubbles to create an opening for the kill, to picking up speed on a treadmill, causing his platforms to deteriorate, or my favorite match, since Sonic is about speed, a race between him and Metal Sonic. You'll first start off in Palm Tree Panic, the Green Hill zone of the game, that helps you get used to the time-traveling mechanics and know when to attempt in doing so. Next is Collision Chaos, too much clutter all around with bouncers, pinball flippers, and a beginner's trap by accidentally running into spikes. It's also where Amy gets abducted firsthand by Metal Sonic. Stage 3 is Tidal Tempest. You'll spend most of the time in water catching air bubbles to stay active. Stage 4 is Quartz Quadrant. As the title suggests, it's a mine rich in quartz with conveyor belts that move in different directions depending on how you move the switch around. It's as linear as Palm Tree Panic, so you can end the zone easily. It's also where the Eggman match is that you don't hit him at all, as you're required instead to speed up the conveyor belt in order to cause his platform to deteriorate slowly. Stage 5 is Wacky Workbench. You'll mostly bounce around the stage while also avoiding electricity and getting frozen. Play carefully in the stage as it can cause headaches due to the screen scrolling. Stage 6 is Stardust Speedway. The makers really outdid themselves in designing the stage, making it really fun to speed through. You can really go fast in this zone that sooner or later, you will want to pause the game to regain your composure before you end up being dazed by the rapid progression of the zone. Act 3 also has you racing against Metal Sonic to the goal, while also avoiding Dr. Eggman's instant death ray. FYI, rings or invincibility frames won't save you from it. As much as I love the Japanese-European version's soundtrack, my favorite tracks would definitely be from Stardust Speedway, especially the good Future version. The final zone is Metallic Madness, Eggman's base of operations, and while long, it's not that hard. That is until you reach that one part in Act 3, as it's the only stage in the entire game with a bottomless pit. The zone also sports slow-moving pistons that somehow launches Sonic very high, completely ignoring physics altogether. And a section where Sonic shrinks, which I'll admit does look really cute. The final match with Dr. Eggman is rather pathetic, as long as you can use the invincibility frames after losing your rings to take him down in 4 shots in a matter of minutes. And that's it. Very anticlimactic. If you manage to change the past on all acts or get all the time stones, Sonic escapes with Amy, while Little Planet was set free from its bonds, ending the game.
During its initial release, Sonic CD didn't exactly sell well, but then most of the blame will go to the Sega CD itself, because the way they execute it is rather poor. I mean, they tried something new, they just couldn't handle it just yet. But it's great to see Sonic CD in compilations like the Sonic Gems collection, which is actually based on the PC version with faster loading times and much better full motion video. In fact, that very same version is also available on the PS3 and 360, which you also have an option of playing as Tails. While the game itself is actually really good, I don't consider it the best Sonic game as everybody says it would be. Granted, I do like the creative boss battles against Dr. Eggman, controlling the Super Peel Out, as well as the CD quality music. However, the level design leaves a lot to be desired, with so many things cluttered all over the place, and a lot of them are actually out of place. I am going to get a lot of backlash from this, but my final rating for this one will be an 8 out of 10. But don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself, and maybe you'll find something positive that I didn't see. Well, we're halfway through this marathon, and this next review may take a long time for me to make, if only because I want to try to incorporate everything into one video. In fact, my next video would be Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles. Now, one YouTube user that I've been following for so long, he actually did a 2-part video on this. So for this channel, I will try to make it one video. So yeah, we're gonna review Sonic the Hedgehog 3 as a whole. So until then, this has been Musashi X. I bid you all farewell, take care, and stay tuned.
Took the sonic border.